Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond, and welcome you to the prelude to the NCAA ladder tourneys. As we basically talk about how the ladder tournaments and how the setup has happened. Now, as you all know, the first 32 teams of the Legends Cup, like the Ultimate Legends Cup, has been filled with a lot of good teams and all that. So there have been some very deserving teams in different conferences that basically have had great runs, but basically have not either won a title or basically got enough points. So this is what happens. Every conference, including the independents, which would be 12, 11 conferences, have a champion. The winner of the ladder match is from each of the groups. Go from 33 to, we'll get seeds 33 through 43, depending on their point total from before. So basically, you win with a high point total in one conference and all that. You could get yourself a very decent point and all that. So now there was one tiny little problem. The Sun Belt only had two qualified teams, that being App State and, if I look at my notes here, Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe got to a quarterfinal. App State didn't. So App State was given the second Sun Belt spot, which means that they got in as the ladder champion. But their one total point got them the 42 seed. So basically, the ladder cups went like, now there were three conferences, the Mountain West, the American, and the Pac-10, that actually had pre-ladder qualifications because of how good their teams are, or for the lack of effort. The Mountain West set up San Jose versus Air Force and Utah State versus Wyoming. Whoever won those two games would get into the Mountain West ladder to deal with Nevada and Fresno. Based on point totals, Nevada and Fresno would host these matchups. So anyway, that happened. And then basically what ended up happening is that Nevada took on Fresno in the Mountain West final. Fresno beat Nevada to get into the tournament, whereas Nevada would have to try again, in a sense. The American had Central Florida versus Memphis and Tulsa Tulane. Whoever won those two matches would face each other in one game playoff to get to see who's in the American Conference ladder. And Tulsa beat Tulane. Central Florida beat Tulsa, so Central Florida got into the ladder of the American. As Cincy, SMU, and South Florida with their point totals actually got in. So the American semifinals were Cincy versus SMU and Central Florida versus South Florida. Cincy defeated Central Florida in the final to get into the tournament. Central Florida would have to try again. In the Pac-10, we had Cal taking on Arizona State, winner take all. And Cal beat Arizona State to get into the tournament. To get into the ladder for the Pac-10. And then the Pac-10 ladder was Cal got in against Utah. The winner of that game would take on Oregon State. The winner of that game takes on Oregon, and the winner of that game takes on Colorado. Using the ladder, Utah beat Cal, Oregon State beat Utah, Oregon beat Oregon State, and then Colorado beat Oregon. So basically, every road team lost. In the Mountain, the Independents had a three-team thing that scored points: BSU, Army, and of course Canada State. Because Canada State had the better point total, they would host either BSU or Army. Empire State, or BSU, went to Army and beat them. Then that got them the matchup against Canada State, which they won. So Empire State gets into the tournament. The Big Ten ladder had Illinois versus Purdue, and then the winner Purdue won that game, so they took on Indiana. They beat Indiana, so they faced Michigan State, which Michigan State won. But then they went to Wisconsin, lost. Wisconsin gets into the tournament. Michigan State will try again and another point. The Big 12 ladder had Texas Tech take on K-State. Texas Tech won, so they got to go to Baylor. They beat Baylor. So then they faced Texas Christian. They lost to TCU. TCU went into West Virginia and beat West Virginia. So Texas Christian wins the Big 12 title. Well, the spot in the tournament as a Big 12. ACC had Virginia Tech, Boston College. VT beat BC. Virginia Tech went to North Carolina and lost to them. North Carolina then went to Georgia Tech and lost to them. And Georgia Tech, on a last-second play, won the game against Miami and got themselves in the tournament, putting Miami into another second chance tournament. As we said, the American Conference USA had Marshall versus Western Kentucky and North Texas versus Rice. The winner of those two matchups would face each other for the latter championship of the Conference USA, and Western Kentucky beat North Texas to get into the tournament. In the MAC, we had Eastern Michigan, Toledo, and Western Michigan, Central Michigan semifinal matchups, and Toledo defeated Central Michigan in the final to get into the tournament automatically. SEC, we had Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Texas A&M won. Then they went to Tennessee. Tennessee then went to South Carolina and lost to them. South Carolina lost to Ole Miss at Ole Miss, meaning Ole Miss is in the tournament, and South Carolina would be put into a second chance tournament. No SEC road team won. And as we said, the Pac-10, all that. So, so from seeds 33 to 43 are as follows. 33 is Wisconsin with their 61 total points. 34 is Ole Miss with 59. Colorado 58 got 35th. They actually had a tiebreaker based on winning a tournament over Texas Christian. So TCU ends up 36. Georgia Tech ends up number 37 with their 42 points. Cincy was number 38 with their 13 total points. Empire State got number 39 ahead of Fresno, which was nice. Fresno number 40, Toledo number 41, App State 42, and Western Kentucky number 43. Those teams are in the Super Championships no matter what. Now comes the hard part. With so many teams being knocked flat, we found out that by mathematical numbers, there were 36 teams going to fight for 21 last spot. So, doing the numbers, we decided to make 12 groups of 3 teams. So basically, you play 2 games against your 2 opponents. The group and the committee decided that the winners of those 12 groups from A to L would get the spots from 44 to 55. They would all qualify for the tournament. Whoever ended up in second place of the 3-team groups, I'll give you an example of a 3-team group. And one example of a 3-team group, well, I'll give you the 3-team group. I'll give example. Group A was Virginia Tech, Mississippi State, and Indiana. Now, of course, in those 3-team groups, no teams from the same conference can match up against each other. So, Virginia Tech took on Mississippi State. And the Mississippi State would take on Indiana and Virginia Tech, Indiana, no matter what. Whoever won that group would get into the tournament automatically. Whoever ends up second place would actually get a second chance match, and whoever ends up third will be eliminated from competition. So basically, I'm not going to give away who won those latter tournaments because obviously I want to do the prelude. It's the prelude, and basically those little groups. So they would play each other. But each one of the 12 groups, 8L, the first team that was drawn out of the hopper would be the host. And even if Mississippi State took on Indiana, they would go face Virginia Tech. They would play in Virginia Tech. So as I said, the 12 winners would qualify. The 12 second placers would face each other in 6 mini games. In 6 one-game matchups to decide who gets into the tournament. Because as we said, 12 teams out, that meant we had 9 left. So the 6 matchups, those 6 matchup winners would get in, and then whoever lost would not be eliminated, but they would be in three one-on-one matchups, and whoever won those would get the last 3 spots of the tournament and get seeds 62, 63, 64. So anyway, that's the skinny of it, and basically I'll talk to you about the last qualification spots in the next video.